Good morning. I'm Jen Amos at Weiss Research.
I'm Andy Myers, and this is your morning market alert for Friday, June 10th. U.S. stock futures are pointing to a relatively flat open, a day after the market snapped a six-session losing streak. Yesterday's gains were largely driven by a bigger-than-expected decline in the nation's trade deficit. And today, investors are digesting a reading of import and export prices. We'll bring you those numbers after the opening bell. Data on the Chinese economy are also moving the global markets. The country's trade surplus expanded by $2 billion in May, but that was still well below estimates, as China's export growth cooled and imports accelerated. Some analysts believe the report suggests slowing global demand, but domestic demand remains strong, which may prompt China to take further steps to cool down its economy.
Concerns about global economic growth are weighing on stocks around the world. The major Asian markets gave up some earlier gains following that Chinese international trade report. And in Europe, stocks are broadly lower, as officials disagree over how to deal with Greece's debt crisis. Germany's finance minister has called on private bondholders to contribute a second bailout for Greece by giving the country an extra 7 years to repay the bonds. But yesterday, ECB President Jean-Claude Trichet rejected that suggestion, saying they shouldn't do anything that could be considered a default by the ratings agencies. Trichet also hinted that the central bank will raise interest rates again next month, and that's putting pressure on the euro again today. It's falling against the dollar as yields on treasury bills continue to rise.
The dollar's strength today is helping to drive down commodities prices. Crude oil is dropping back around $101 a barrel, snapping a three-day rally. OPEC spurred the recent rally after the group failed to raise output quotas at its meeting in Vienna earlier this week. That's raising concerns that global supply may not be able to keep up with growing energy demand. One oil stock that's likely to be in focus today is Chesapeake Energy. It's holding its annual shareholder meeting. We'll also be keeping an eye on shares of National Semiconductor. After yesterday's closing bell, the chipmaker reported a decline in its quarterly profit and sales figures, but revenue topped analyst estimates. In April, National Semi agreed to be acquired by Texas Instruments.
Microsoft may open lower this morning. Yesterday, the Supreme Court rejected its attempt to avoid paying $290 million to Canada's I4I. A lower federal court found that Microsoft violated I4I patents in certain versions of its Word software program. The Supreme Court let the ruling stand, although Microsoft has since altered the program to get around the problem. And finally, one big stock winner today is Lululemon Athletica, jumping 6% in the pre-market. The retailer posted a 70% increase in fiscal first quarter profit on strong sales of its yoga apparel. Lululemon also projected earnings for the current quarter and the full year that were well ahead of Wall Street estimates. That's the latest from Weiss Research. We'll be back after the opening bell with all the economic data and market reaction.